So if we can find someone with whom you can have that non-judgmental conversation, I often recommend that women find a money buddy. Who can you talk to? Maybe it's your partner, maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's your cousin, maybe it's your best friend down the street.
Hey, everybody. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly, and I am one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. At Abbey Research, we believe that curiosity can change the world because it's the only thing that ever has. Somebody saying, what if I go here, or I wonder if this does this, or I wonder what this tastes like, is how we have moved humanity forward. And this series is in service of that idea, that if we could ask more questions and learn things about each other and cultivate our curiosity, humanity would move forward. It's called Welcome to My World, and I have this incredible privilege of talking to folks from all over the shop who are differently than me, which is literally everybody, about something in their lives that if we all knew it, our lives would be richer. And today's guest is absolutely no exception. I'm thrilled to death to be joined by my friend Stephanie McCullough, who is the founder of Sofia Financial and the co-host of the Take Back Retirement podcast. She's also been a friend of the Good Doctors since like 7 iterations ago, and we've been working with her for a while, and we're really excited that she's on the show. She's one of Investopedia's 100 top financial advisors of 2021. NBD. She provides non-judgmental, truly holistic financial planning for professional women. And we're going to talk about why women in particular as soon as I finish introducing her. She's been in financial planning for financial advisor for 24 years, and she frequently speaks to women's groups about money and how to human and do money at the same time. Degree-wise, she's got a master's in international economics from a school you may have heard of called Johns Hopkins, and another bachelor's from a place called Duke. Again, you might have heard of it. She's got 2 kids in college, so I'm sure she knows quite a bit about financial planning, her and her husband, and I'm excited to learn her wisdom. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Dr. Kristen, for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, it's so great. Okay, let's dive right in. Why women?
Oh, well, I do feel like the traditional financial services industry misses the mark, right? They're not having conversations that really resonate with women around money, right? They're talking about stocks and they're talking about beating the market, where there's a lot of research showing that, number one, kind of women haven't like taken up with financial planning as much as, men. But also that's not the conversation that's meaningful for women. Money is a tool. It's this, entity in the world that we got to figure out. And it's all in service of what we want to do with our lives, the lives we want to live, the things that are most important to us, the people that we want to support, right? That's what's important. It's not the money itself. It's what it can do for you.
Okay. And I think that, I totally agree. Even if stocks and bonds aren't masculine or aren't exclusionary, they feel that way. Like they feel like there's something that all of us were told, like stockbrokers are men and all of those kind of things. So it's not necessarily logical, it's emotional, which from what I've learned from you, so much of what we do with money is emotional. It's not logical anyway.
It's very true, right? You're right. Like there's still this image that kind of, even if the woman takes care of the household budget and pays the bills, the man does the investments or the long-term stuff, right? That's kind of, and I've heard ridiculous stories from people you and I both know who've gone to try to find a financial advisor. And this one woman brought her husband along, right, as another set of ears, but it was her money. 8 out of 10 guys spoke to her husband, didn't even speak to her. She made the appointment. It was her money, right? So like there's something missing there. It's a societal message that we still get that this is not a women's realm, which is total baloney because there's a giant transfer of wealth going on right now, right? More and more women are controlling more wealth, which to me is a very positive thing, right? The world will be a different place when more women control more money and are financially stable.
Yeah, I mean, there's statistics in the developing world in particular that I'm sure transfer into the developed world, that a woman is 3 times more likely to spend money on her family and her children than on herself. And so therefore it invests in the community and invests in her children, and we seed it forward significantly more statistically likely than a man is going to.
Yeah, very much, right? That's why investing in women and girls is so transformative to whole communities and countries, because once they can, keep their head above water, they're going to pay their kids' school fees, and then they're going to help out community, and they're going to do those other things. And I think it's very true for us in the developed world as well, right? We are looking at how we can improve the world and make the world a better place with our dollars, with our time, with our energy, with our passions, with everything.
Yeah.
Money's just one more tool in that arsenal.
I love that. Okay. So curious though, because I love asking every woman who gets into financial planning this question. What was the impetus for you to enter 25 years ago, what I'm sure was almost exclusionarily a male world? Would you mind sharing your story a little?
Yeah, it was all totally by accident, right? And I am like on a soapbox trying to get more women into this profession because it's such a great profession and it's such a very well suited for women. But I wasn't of that mind. I grew up affirmatively, definitively not wanting to be a financial advisor because my father was one. He was an insurance guy, an investments guy. He is a natural born salesperson, and he, is always kind of having that sales conversation, which turned me off. Don't tell him. But I was just like, oh, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. And then, graduated from school. My husband and I were living in DC. We thought, oh, we might want to have kids. And if we do, it might be nice to be near the grandparents who were all in the Philadelphia area. My husband gets a job in Philly. The universe seems to be telling us to move. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do there?
Yeah.
I guess I could go work with dad. But then I very quickly had kind of a crisis, like, oh, I don't have an MBA and I'm not a natural born salesperson, so I can't do this work, right? He was my only role model. But luckily I happened upon the very first executive coach I'd ever met. I sat next to this guy at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and he says, he's a coach. I'm like, what, you like coach volleyball or something? This is like 1998, right? No one had ever heard of a coach. And he's like, no, just do a free session with me. And by the end of the 30 minutes, I was basically crying. I'm like, I have to work with you. Please help me, help me, help me, help me. Because I was like, here I am. I'm signed up for this life sentence. Family business, I figured was a life sentence. You might know a little bit about that. And then but I felt like I couldn't do the work. So we went on this year-long process of kind of exploring, well, what other things could I do? Sorry, this is a very long answer, but we discovered there's a lot of things about the work that I loved. I love having conversations with people about what's important to them. I love learning things all the time. There's always something to learn in the field of money. And I'm decent at explaining it in a way, like with everyday terms that make sense to people. So, and money is an area where you can make such a difference to people. Like we were saying, right? If you can help one woman get financially stable and secure her family, then she's going to in turn have those ripple effects and change the world. So I kind of came around to like, oh yeah, I can do this work. And then I discovered the people in the industry that were kind of doing it differently, right? Having that life first conversation, money as a supporting character in the story. And I was like, oh, I can do it that way. So that's what set me on my path.
I love that because it sets up my next question really, really well, which I think is kind of that we think of the word wealth really shallowly. So the number of my friends who I feel should have financial planners, but never would because they live closer to paycheck, whatever. And they would say, well, that person, I don't have any wealth. And so it wouldn't be worth financial planning, but I know that that's not necessarily true.
Well, and I love that I've heard you say before, right? You have a very holistic, inclusive definition of the word wealth.
Yeah.
It's not just money, which totally resonates with me, but also I despise the term wealth manager. Oh, I'm a wealth manager. Because it turns everybody off, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of the industry, right? Follow the money. How are people getting paid? Most financial advisors get paid by the amount of dollars you invest with them. They only get paid on the investments. In the old days, it was much more commission, sell you a product. That's still out there somewhat. But if someone can invest $1,000 with me versus $10 million with me, right? A lot of advisors actually have minimums. So they're not going to help you if you have less. So the industry has done this to itself.
Okay.
And yet there are plenty of people who, myself included, who will meet for a one-time session, right?
Right.
An hour, 90 minutes to kind of get our arms around it. There are financial coaches who help people with spending and with debt. There's all kinds of services out there. So I feel like there are the voices out there like, hello, we can still help you. Because
Yeah.
how the heck are people supposed to learn this stuff? No one
Yeah.
teaches us. No, our families either don't know it or don't talk about money, right? I'm a Gen Xer. That was the generation whispered arguments late at night, right? Don't tell the kids about money. And there's all this science proving that human beings are bad at money. So we're set up
God, we're
for
so bad.
failure. We got to get rid of the shame and blame. And right, like, yeah, I could go on and on. But yeah, people need help, and it's okay to admit you need help.
Yeah, and there's so much shame around money, right? And
Yes.
because we make moral judgments based on what people do with their money and how they do it. And so much of that in the United States goes back to how President Reagan formulated the public narrative around welfare, and what his administration did and how we think about welfare and how we think about help and things like that. But it is so much more complicated than that. And it is, yeah, I mean, like, how many times have all of us who graduated high school in the last 20 years said, you know what I did not need was advanced trigonometry. You know what I did need was a financial planning class. And
Totally.
it would be really great if we could have had, like, I took high level economics, which was wonderful, but that was all theory. Like, I didn't take a single class in the pragmatism of money.
Oh, yeah. I've talked to MBAs from top business schools who never learned personal finance.
Yeah,
they can tell you about
not.
corporate finance all day long, but not how to manage their own money. It's insane. So then we're tossed out in the world and said, here, sink or swim. And by the way, your brain's going to be excited when you order something new from Amazon. And
by the way, you're going to get $1 million every time you get a pay raise. You're going to get 400,000 credit card applications that are telling you everything's fine. And
yeah. They were throwing them at us in college, like my senior year of college.
God, yeah.
Here, have a free t-shirt and a credit card. And we did, it's crazy. So first of all, don't beat yourself up for where you are, right?
Yeah.
And second of all, if you can find a way to set aside the judgment, because the numbers on the page aren't judging you, it's all the stories we carry around in our heads. Again, no blame for the stories. That's how the human brain operates, right? We accumulate these things in our heads, and then it really is trying to protect us. So if we can find someone with whom you can have that non-judgmental conversation, I often recommend that women find a money buddy. Who can you talk to? Maybe it's your partner, maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's your cousin, maybe it's your best friend down the street, where you can talk goals, talk emotional blocks, right? Where do you tend to get straight off course? And talk numbers, learn together, right? Women learn very well in groups. So if you can find ways to learn. And the good news is there's lots of great info out there now. There's books, there's podcasts, there's, YouTubers. This is a book that I really like, Activate Your Money, Janine Firpo, talking about not only like how the financial system works, but how could you choose to align your dollars to make the world a better place while you're also making yourself more financially secure. So there is info if you can knock down your own shame enough to learn about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the big if, right? And I should say too, I know for me, and I'm sure for you yourself and your clients, this is cyclical. Like, I'll be really good, and then another story will come up, or something else. But I'm curious from your perspective as an advocate, if somebody can do one thing, what are kind of some small manageable tips that you can give people? Let's say that, like, I don't have somebody who's in my tax bracket that I would feel comfortable talking to about what's going on. So let's say you do have to manage this alone for a little while.
Yeah.
What are some of your concrete tips to help us think about money differently or physically do something differently?
Yeah. The first question to always ask about, if you've got some money to try to figure out what to do with, the first question is, what is this money's job?
Ooh, I like that.
This pot of money or this dollar, right? What is this dollar's job? I just talked to a woman the other day. She's going to be getting a settlement from a lawsuit. So when we sit down, we're going to be like, okay, what job does this money play for you? And your money has to play lots of roles, right? It has to play the role of securing your today, paying your mortgage or your rent and your cell phone bill, and buying you food. Sometimes it has to help you with yesterday, right? Stuff that you did in the past. So student loan debt, credit card debt, stuff that you spent before that you're still paying off now. And then there's also your future self, right? So there's a time aspect going on. So some money you want to set aside for the future, for maybe you're trying to buy a house down the road, or quit your job and start a passion project, or retire, right? Whatever it might be, send kids to school, doesn't matter. It's a future need. So the first question is, what job does this money need to play for me? Could be multiple. And then after that, you figure out what's the best place to put it, what's the best way to deal with it.
I love that, because I think, especially as this is airing, we're right around tax season, and you have a lot of narratives around what to do with your tax refund.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of narratives about like treat yourself and things like that. And what your tax refund may need to do is help your past self not be so stressed out.
Right.
Or plan for, like, we're in the middle of planning some improvements to our house to try to help it not only make it more livable and more joyful for us, but realistically in 20 years when we want to sell it, because that's our personal timeline, it'll be a higher market value and maybe we'll make a profit on it, so there's all these kind of calculations of like, okay, well, we need a second air conditioning zone and we need to redo the backyard and like all of these kind of things. And there's also the fact that money can provide things that bring us rest or joy or happiness.
Yes.
And that, I think the phrase money doesn't make you happy is really problematic.
I agree.
Because it then kind of deifies poverty. And it's like the purest people are the poorest, which I hate.
That's baloney.
And like evil people are the people, and anyone who has a ton of money is evil, which is nothing is black and white like that.
And I think the key is that money by itself is not going to solve your problems, but having the money and then thinking through what to do with it in a strategic way, that's the key. You have to have both, right? A pot of money with, still spending it through the nose or dealing with a lot of stress and difficulty doesn't necessarily solve all the problems, right? I think that's maybe the more nuanced look at it.
Right. Okay. Now, finally, some practical advice. So let's say I've got $10,000.
Yeah.
And I want to do something, and my company does not have a 401k.
Yeah.
And I want to do something intelligent for future me.
Okay.
There are a lot of letters out there like IRAs and blah, 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 blah. Like, kind of help me talk through what some of my options would be for future me with that pot of money.
The first thing I always ask people is like, do you have some cash sitting somewhere, right?
Okay.
Whether you call it an emergency fund or a effort fund or, some kind of cash, because what happens if you put that money into a long-term thing? And I'll mention that in a second, but then next month your car breaks down or you have a dental bill that you weren't expecting that insurance doesn't cover, right? So you do need to have some cash. So when people come to me and they say, I've got some money to invest, I'm like, first of all, should it be invested? Because invested applies longer term and maybe some risk of up and down. So should it be saved instead?
Okay.
Whether it's I'm taking a big vacation in 3 months and I'm going to need to pay for it. I wish, right? Who takes a big vacation anymore? Hopefully we could do that again. But, also, do I need to beef up my emergency fund? But let's assume that that's done.
Okay.
Then the next question is, okay, I want to put it aside for the future. How far in the future? Right? Because those letters you mentioned, there are these retirement accounts in the United States that the government has seen fit to set up and give us tax breaks for, but they've got all kinds of rules around it. Anytime you get a tax break, tax deferral, there's going to be quid pro quo. There's going to be some restrictions around it.
Okay.
So for example, an individual retirement account, an IRA, also 401k, all these different retirement accounts, you can't access them before age 59 and a half without a penalty.
Oh, and that goes across the board.
It
doesn't matter like when you retire.
Correct.
Okay.
You could retire at 50 if you take your money out of your 401k. There's some ways around it, but for the most part.
But like just general rule, like help me understand this. Okay.
Yeah. So if I'm 30 and I have this $10,000 and I have a dream to start a business in 10 years, I don't want an IRA place to put it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. But I'm turning 55 in a couple of weeks. Right. So for me, it might be like, oh yeah, if I want to retire in 10 years or heck, 6 years, right? Maybe that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to beef up that retirement account a little bit.
Okay.
Right. So that's a piece of the puzzle. It's kind of the when and the time frame. And then the other thing people mix up is that, like, let's say I'll ask people, what are you invested in? And they'll say, I have an IRA. That only tells you what kind of account you have, what the tax treatment is, and when you're allowed to access it. It doesn't tell you what's in it. You can hold cash or a money market fund in an IRA. You can hold a mutual fund. You can hold stock. You can hold cash, money market, mutual fund, stock outside of an IRA. So there's two
I thought
levels.
IRAs were always just cash. No.
No.
Okay, this is good to know.
I have a friend who owns an apartment building in her IRA. Right? It's just a bucket with rules around it.
Okay, fascinating. So my husband and I are in our late 30s, early 40s, and he is a triple citizen, Irish, like Republic of Ireland, United Kingdom, and the United States. And he has retirement funds in all three of those countries.
Uh-huh.
My financial planner loves us, as you can imagine. And then I co-own a company. And I have no other retirement besides the company itself. And the rules around my husband's pension is because he earned it before he was married in the UK and Ireland. I have no access to it.
Yeah.
Unless he does separate documents to like make sure it can go directly into his American 401k, which currently with Brexit, we're having trouble getting written. But like, oh yeah, it's a whole thing. It'll be fine. Like it won't go back to the government. Like there's workarounds. Right. We have smart people helping us. But I think what I just feel so constantly overwhelmed by not even knowing how to Google things. And so I really, really love this gift that you've given our viewers of like, here are the questions you ask first. What does this money supposed to do? When do you need it to do it?
Yes.
So start with those two.
Yeah.
And then find somebody in your local area, or obviously Stephanie, whose contact information will be in the show notes, who can give you a half an hour of their time.
Yeah.
And let you know if there's a simple Post-it note plan you can follow, or if things are more complicated because you're like me and there's 3 citizenships between you and you need somebody to help you kind of deal with that.
Right. There's a great book I love called The One-Page Financial Plan by Carl Richards.
Okay.
That kind of like gets at that. And then another good source for information, like if you don't know what the heck a Roth IRA is, Investopedia.com, like investment encyclopedia, Investopedia, that has a lot of good kind of 101 information. Good,
my poor accountant, he'll be like, we're going to do this. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, Charlie. I was like, I need you to talk to me like I am a small child. I don't know what that is.
Right. So, and it is easy when you're in the industry to get caught up in the jargon, but
we all have jargons like that. Like I'm an academic. I have to remember to not say, like the orthopraxical construct of, like none of you know what that means. So
I would just, if I could say one more thing, if somebody has an advisor who is talking down to them or won't define the jargon, find another one. There's lots of us out there.
Especially for those of us who might inherit who our parents used.
Or spouse, ex-spouse, right?
Or ex-spouse, happens all the time. Or company.
You can leave. It happens all day long.
Yeah, because we haven't signed contracts with any of these people. Our money can move.
Well, you have signed a contract and you can leave anytime you want. Yeah.
Well, those of us who were kids, I'll tell you, I never signed a contract with my dad's dude. So like it just kind of kept happening.
Oh, okay.
Because my dad signed the contract for us when we were minors.
Oh, right.
And then we just never did anything once we became of age because we were both living out of I was living outside of the United States. My brother wasn't in a place to think about it at all. And so when we were finally in a place like, okay, no, we moved. And he was like, you're out of contract with me. You can go wherever you want. Yeah. So it was really interesting.
And
it's a great thing to remember.
Even if someone signed a contract with me today, they can leave next month. It's not a problem.
So here's so key takeaways. I want to say it again because I love it and I'm going to use it all the time. Know what this dollar needs to do.
Yeah.
Know when it needs to do it. And if you are talking about money with somebody who makes you feel stupid, find somebody new.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Stephanie, where on the internet can folks find you if they are looking for some more help?
So my business is called Sofia Financial because I was told by my Greek friend that Sophia means wisdom in Greek.
It's
Sophia with an F. I'm Stephanie with a PH, Sophia with an F, sofiafinancial.com. And then I'm Sofia Financial on all the various social medias. And then the podcast is called Take Back Retirement. So takebackretirement.com.
Love it. And we will link those in the show notes. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It was fun.
So much fun. Pals, if you've enjoyed this conversation, I would greatly appreciate it if you would give it an old thumbs up because then the algorithm knows to tell other people about it and more people can get this wisdom. If you love the vibe of this conversation or are vaguely, into how I talk about things, Dr. Aaron and I are pretty entertaining, we think. So hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single one of these videos or any of the other content that we produce across the internet. This has been the series Welcome to My World. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly. My guest has been financial wizard Stephanie McCullough. Our deep hope for you as you move forward is that you can rewrite the narratives that you might hold about money and realize that it is a resource like anything else without moral judgment, and also that you can find someone that you trust to talk about it. And I will certainly see you next time on the next edition of Welcome to My World. Bye, everybody.